Hello everyone, welcome to EthioBlend. This is Solomon. In today's tutorial, I will show you how to create a realistic glass cleaner product model in Blender. Welcome to part 1 our modeling tutorial. You are going to absolutely love it. Please support us by liking this video, subscribing to the channel and turning on the notification bell for updates. Stay tuned until the end. Let's get started. First, open Blender. Hold the Shift key to select the light and camera. Then hit X to delete them. For now, we only need a cube. Press N to open the Transform Properties panel. Check the background, add an image, and open the reference image file. Before doing anything, press 5 on the number pad to switch from perspective to orthographic view. Then press 1 for front view. Change all views to front, and you can adjust the opacity. Set the scale to 2.3 as this is quite large. Switch to Edit and Wireframe mode. Scale the cube by pressing S. Press 3 to switch to side view, but we need to add another image. Open and add a side reference image. You can download the reference image from the link in the description box and use them by following the steps I outlined. Similarly, set the scale to 2.3. Press 1 for front view. Then change all views to the right side. Pressing 3 displays the image on the right side. Move the cube down along the Z axis. Press B to select the top vertices and move them up. Use Ctrl R to add a loop cut and scale it by pressing S along the X axis. Adjust the vertices to match the image. Add more loop cuts with Ctrl R and scale them as needed. You should keep your mesh as low poly as possible. We will add subdivision later. A low polygon count makes shape modification easier. Continue adding loop cuts with Ctrl R and scale them in X axis. Don't aim for perfection at the start, just to try to replicate the image shape. Press Ctrl R to add loop cuts. Use the S key to scale. To add additional loop cut, press Ctrl R while examining the face that needs them. Select the top vertices with B and scaling along the X-axis. Press Ctrl R to add a loop cut here. Then scale along the X-axis by pressing S. Let's speed up the video. At this initial stage, you can extrude by pressing E and scale by pressing S. There should be 13 horizontal loop cuts. Press 3 for side view. Add a loop cut at the center with Ctrl R. Select the vertices with B and delete them by pressing X. Widen this area. Go to the Modifier tab and add a mirror modifier. Check the Y-axis and check the X-axis and enable clipping. Select the vertices with B and move them in the Y-axis to the edge. Select the vertices up to the bending angle. Then select the last vertex. Switch the pivot point to the active element for rotation. Press 3 to switch to side view. Rotate around the X-axis by pressing R at -4 degrees. Switch to object mode. Then go to the modifier tab and add a subdivision modifier, setting it to 2. Switch the pivot point back to median and change to wireframe mode. In edit mode, change the selection to face. Select the face and delete it with X. Switch back to solid mode and apply smooth shading. Now we have the shape. Adding subdivision will define the edge more. For now, decrease the subdivision and change back to flat shading. Let's continue with the top area. Switch to wireframe. Extrude with E and scale with S. Move slightly upward along the Z axis. When it reaches this point, it becomes circular. Extrude again and scale down a bit. Now we need to convert these vertices into a circle, but there are no vertical loop cuts available. Add 5 loop cuts with Ctrl R. Select the loop with Alt. Before switching to a circle, let's change to object mode. Apply the mirror modifier. With the loop selected, press W, go to Loop Tools and select Circle. Then Scale with S. Switch to front view by pressing 1. Extrude with E. This varies slightly from the image. Press Ctrl plus, add loop selection. Then scale using the S key. Select the top loop with Alt and move it along the Z axis. Press E to extrude and scale again with S. Extrude again in the Z axis. Then repeat with E and S following the reference image. Extrude in the Z axis. Use Ctrl R to add a loop cut in the middle and scale it to create a smooth curve, avoiding sharp edges. Now we have the exact bottle shape. Switch to solid mode. Press 3 for side view. Switch to edit and wireframe mode. Turn off subdivision edit mode for better visibility. Press B to select vertices and move along the y-axis to create the shape. Don't worry about the other side, we will mirror it later. Select the back vertices using P, then move them in the y-axis to form this curve. Switch back to solid mode. Holding Ctrl and select the bottom 5 vertices, then press X to delete them. Press Alt to select the loop, then press E to extrude and S to scale. Repeat E to extrude and S to scale, then move up on the Z axis. Again press E and S. Use W, then Loop Tools to select circle and scale it down with S. Press F to fill the face. Switch to front view with 1, then wireframe mode and move slightly. Use Ctrl plus to add selection and move down along the Z axis. To create the curve shape, press K for the knife tool. Cut the 2 vertices and press Enter. Repeat by pressing K to cut 2 more vertices and hit Enter. Switch to side view by pressing 3. Select the vertices with B and delete them with X. In the Modifier tab, add a Mirror modifier, uncheck X, check Y, enable clipping. Move the Mirror modifier above subdivision. Switch to front view with 1 and use double G to move vertices and form the curve shape. Let's speed up the video. Change selection to face and select the front face while holding Ctrl. Switch to solid mode and select faces with holding Ctrl. Press I to insert and type 0.02. Then move along the y-axis to match the reference image. Select the curve vertices with Ctrl and use Shift E to crease, hitting 1 on the numpad. Select the curve vertices again while holding Ctrl for a sharp edge. Press Shift E to crease, then hit 1. To refine the close-up, select the vertices and use double G to adjust. Adjust the vertices to create an appealing shape. Switch back to object mode to check the edges. And this is nice. Once the shape is finalized, add a Solidify modifier for thickness, setting the thickness value to 0.005. Rename the cube to bottle. Switch to edit mode and press Ctrl R to add a loop cut in the middle. Select the top loop with Alt and duplicate the vertices using Shift D. Press P to separate the selection. Then switch back to object mode to see the separated loop. Before proceeding, let's first remove the solidify modifier. Then apply the mirror modifier. In edit mode, rename this to cap. Then press 1 for front view. To create a cap, press E to extrude and scale with S. Use Ctrl plus to add selection and move down along the Z axis. Then press E to extrude upward. Turn off subdivision for now and set it to 1. Then turn it back on. We have a sufficient number of vertical edges. Don't worry about the shape, it's due to subdivision and we will fix it. Add a loop cut with Ctrl R and move it upward in the Z axis for the edge. Repeat to add another loop cut and move it downward. Switch back to object mode and apply the subdivision modifier. Go back to edit mode. Select a loop with Alt and press X to dissolve edges. Repeat for another loop to remove unnecessary edges, leaving one intact. Switch to edge selection and to fix the two colors, select all vertices with A and hit Ctrl N to flip normals. Select one edge, then go to select similar and choose length, or the hotkey is Shift G. Go to the pivot point and switch to individual origin. Press Ctrl B to bevel around 0.003 should be sufficient. Press E to extrude individually a bit. Select the loop by holding the Alt key. Press X to delete the vertices. Again, select the loop with Alt and press E to extrude and S to scale it. To smooth the stretched edge, go to Object Data, enable Auto Smooth and set the angle to about 30 degrees. The stretch edge is now smoother and cleaner. Switch to front view by pressing 1. To create the plastic ring shape, enter edit mode, select the loop with Alt, duplicate it using Shift D and press P to separate the selection. Switch back to object mode. We have the separate loop and rename it to ring. In edit mode, press E to extrude along the Z axis. To fix the two color issue, select all with A and press Ctrl N to flip normals. Select the top loop with Alt and move it slightly along the Z axis. Switch to side view by pressing 3. Select the two faces and extrude twice by pressing E. Select the two top faces and extrude in the Z axis twice. Then widen it slightly by selecting two vertices. Select the loop with Alt. Press E to extrude and scale with S. Again, press E to extrude and scale. Then press E to extrude and pull down along the Z axis. E to extrude and pull down the Z axis. Now switch back to object mode. Go to the modifier tab and add a subdivision modifier. Set to 2. Then apply smooth shading. Return to edit mode. Narrow the faces by selecting them with Ctrl and scaling along the y-axis. To create a sharp edge, add a loop cut with Ctrl R and move it up slightly. Now we need to create this. Switch to edit. Switch to top view by pressing 7. Select the vertices from the center while holding Ctrl. Duplicate with Shift D and press P to separate the selection. The separated vertices are named Ring 1. Rename the separated vertices to Main Cap. In the Modifier tab, add a Mirror modifier. Uncheck X, check Y, and enable clipping. Move the mirror before the subdivision. and turn off Subdivision Edit to see the mirror in the Edit mode. Select the vertices and move them until they clip together. Select the two unnecessary vertices, then press X to dissolve the vertices. And as mentioned earlier, minimize the poly count. Select all with A and move them slightly away from ring along the X-axis. Press E to extrude and scale or move the vertices as needed. To resolve the two color issue, select all and press Ctrl N to flip normals. Use double G to move the vertices until you achieve a semicircle. Select the two vertices, scale along the X-axis and hit 0 to flatten the edge. Switch to front view by pressing 1 and hide the ring. Select all with A and move down along the Z-axis above the cap. Select the two vertices and press E to extrude along the X-axis following the reference image. Switch to top view by pressing 7 for a better perspective. We need to adjust the angle. It is not straight, moving the vertices in the Y-axis as needed. Ensure the vertices extend outside the ring. Switching to wireframe mode, holding Alt and select the outer loop. Then press E to extrude along the Z-axis up to the edge. Select 3 vertices and press E to extrude along the X-axis. This has a curved shape, but we need a straight edge as shown in the image. Scale along the X-axis and press 0 to achieve a straight edge. In this section, we need a sharp edge instead of a curve. To create that, add a loop cut by pressing Ctrl R and move it up slightly. Then add another loop cut for the bottom. Select only the front vertices. Extrude with E and move up along the Z-axis to the edge. Press E to extrude along the Z-axis to the second edge. Switch to side view by pressing 3. Select all with A and scale along the Y-axis to narrow the shape. Select the vertices and move them along the Y-axis to create this angle. Switch to front view by pressing 1. Select two vertices and move them in the X-axis. To achieve uniform poly distribution, adjust the vertices in the X-axis. Select the vertices with Alt. Press E to extrude along the Z-axis. Select and move the last vertex in the X-axis to the edge. Add 3 loop cuts with Ctrl R and adjust the vertices in the X-axis to create the shape. For uniform distribution, continue moving the vertices along the X-axis. Add 2 loop cuts by pressing Ctrl R. Select the last vertex and move it along the X-axis to form the shape. Use B to box select these vertices. Then press E to extrude along the X-axis to the edge. Increase opacity if needed. Switch to solid mode. With Ctrl held, select all vertices except the last. Then press E to extrude in the Y-axis until they clip together. Add a loop cut with Ctrl R where needed. Then select the 4 vertices and press F to fill the face. Select the edge and press F to fill that face, ensuring the edge is sharp. To sharpen, add another loop cut with Ctrl R and move it closer. Add another loop cut to create the sharp edge. Now you see the difference. Select all with A and press Ctrl N to flip normals. For sharpness, add a loop cut with Ctrl R near other edge loops. Add another loop cut with Ctrl R from above and adjust it. And do the same from below. Now we have nice sharp edges. We finished the shape but left only one thing, which is thickness. To add thickness, go to the Modifier tab and add Solidify Modifier, adjusting the thickness to around 0.002 or as preferred. Select the loop with Alt, duplicate it with Shift D and separate selection with P. In object mode, the separated object is main cap 1. Rename the separated object to filter or another name. Remove the Solidify modifier. Then apply the mirror modifier. In edit mode, select 2 vertices and press X to dissolve them. Select another pair of vertices and press F to bridge the gap. Then add 3 loop cuts with Ctrl R like the opposite side. Select the loop with Alt. Switch to front view with 1 and extrude it in the X-axis. Switch to wireframe and hide unnecessary elements. Turn off subdivision for better visibility. Extrude with E and scale with S to create an inclined angle. Again press E to extrude in X-axis up to last. Switch to solid mode. Extrude with E, then scale with S. Duplicate the loop with Shift D, scale it down. Then use W loop tools to select circle. Adjust it inward along the X-axis. First press the S key to scale it down. Next select all vertices with the A key. Then press Ctrl N to flip normal. Use the Alt key to select the circle loop. Scale it again with S. And extrude it using E while scaling with S. Use the Alt key to select the circle loop. Scale it again with S. Select 2 vertices to form a cross. Extrude in the Y-axis within the cube. For better visibility, switch to wireframe mode. Make it flat by scaling along the Y-axis to 0. Then do the same for the rest. Select the loop again with Alt. Extrude and scale it with E and S to create a small hole. Finally, extrude and shift it along the X-axis. Then press F to fill the face. Switch to solid mode. Select all with A and use Ctrl N to flip normals once more. Return to object mode and enable subdivision. Now let's edit and refine the shape. Add loop cuts with Ctrl R for sharpness, repeating where necessary. Switch to front view with 1. Add another loop cut with Ctrl R and adjust it. Also on this area by pressing Ctrl R up to this. Do the same for angle area. Once in object mode, smooth shade the shape. Return to edit mode. Select the circle loop with Alt. Duplicate it using Shift D and move it along the X-axis. Select the loop again. Extrude and scale with E and S. Again press E to extrude and scale by pressing S. For sharp edges, scale to the edge. Select the loop. Then press W, go to loop tools and select circle. Extrude and scale again. Select the 4 vertices and press F to fill the face. Then select edge and press F to continue filling. Now we have a refined shape. Go to the Modifier tab and add a Solidify modifier. Set the thickness as desired. I find 0.002 suitable. Unhide all objects. And smooth shade the main cap. If there are stretch edges, go to the object data, enable auto smooth, and the issue will be corrected. Add the loop while looking at the places that should be sharp edges by pressing Ctrl R. As you can see, we have made significant progress. And our model of the glass cleaner is looking great. Now let's create this model. First, press Shift S and select Cursor to Center. Next, press Shift A to add a plane. Then rotate it along the X-axis by pressing R 90 degrees. Switch to Edit mode. Then scale it by pressing S. Move it up along the Z-axis. Let's scale it again for better proportion. Now switch to Wireframe View and temporarily hide the Glass Cleaner model. Select the vertex and move it down on the Z-axis to create an inclined angle. Now select the vertices and press E to extrude them. Let's speed up the video here. Switch back to Object mode. Go to the Modifier tab and add Subdivision Modifier. Increase the subdivision level to 2. Return to Edit mode and add loop cuts by pressing Ctrl R, moving them close to an edge. Again, add another loop cut with Ctrl R. Now select everything by pressing A and press E to extrude along the Y-axis to give the model some thickness. Select everything again, then move it away from the center on the Y-axis. Back in the Modifier tab, add a Mirror modifier, uncheck the X-axis and check the Z-axis. Then enable Clipping. Position this modifier above the Subdivision modifier. To flip the normals, press Ctrl N. Now select the face starting from here to there by holding Ctrl and press E to extrude along the Y-axis until they meet. However, as you can see, this creates some unwanted faces with a split edge. Let's fix it. Press X to delete the faces. Now it's corrected. Smooth shade display and rename it to Trigger. Next, unhide all models. Select the bottle, then switch to Edit and Wireframe mode to get a better view. Let's freeze the subdivision for clarity. Select everything by pressing A. Then press Shift D to duplicate it and create the liquid. Press P to separate the selection. Select the separated object named Bottle and rename it to Liquid. Switch to Edit mode. Next, select the top loop by holding the Alt key and then press Ctrl+ to expand your selection. Press X to delete the vertices. Switch to Object mode. Now hide the bottle to see our progress better. With the loop selected in Edit mode, press E to extrude and then scale it by pressing S. Again, press E to extrude and scale it. Then move it down slightly on the Z-axis. Once more, extrude and scale. Then press F to fill the gap. Now enable the subdivision again. Select everything by pressing A. First, let's scale down the object by 0.99 by pressing S. Next, switch to Object mode. Unhide the bottle to check how the liquid fits inside. Select the bottle and activate the subdivision modifier. Now switch to Solid mode. You will need to fix any stray vertices of the liquid. Return to Wireframe View. Hide the liquid for now. Select the bottle again. Now switch to Edit mode. Select the top vertices by holding Alt. Press Shift D to duplicate the selection. Then press P to separate the selection. In Object mode, select the newly separated vertices. For now, let's remove the Solidify modifier. Rename the object from Bottle to Straw. Now switch to Edit mode. Scale it down to about 0.28 or 0.3 and move it slightly apart. Press E to extrude along the Z-axis. Press E once more to extrude. Then scale it down to 0.75. Continue extruding, moving and rotating as needed. Adjust the direction as you see fit. Lastly, select the bottle and let's create the label. Freeze the subdivision modifier. Switch back to edit mode. Change the selection from vertex mode to face mode. While holding Ctrl, select the faces. Duplicate them by pressing Shift D. Then separate the selection by pressing P. Go back to object mode. Select the separated object and rename it to label. On this label, ensure you have both the subdivision and solidify modifiers. In edit mode, select all by pressing A. Press Shift E to remove the crease -1. Next, add a shrink ramp modifier from the modifier panel. Position the shrink ramp modifier before the solidify modifier. Enable the subdivision modifiers for both the bottle and the labels. Select the label, then set the target and the shrink ramp modifier to the bottle. Adjust the solidify modifier to make it thinner, around 0.001. If the offset is incorrect, change it to 1. Now check for any stretch edge. Go to the object data properties and enable auto smooth. Everything should now appear corrected and smoother. If you want the label to be visible on both sides, add a mirror modifier. Enable the y-axis and disable the x-axis. Finally, let's parent all these modules together as one object for easier movement and animation. Next, press Shift A to add an empty cube and scale it to match the shape. Select the objects first, then hold Shift and select the empty cube. Press Ctrl P to parent the objects. Keep transform. Repeat this process for the other objects. Now you should see that all objects are contained within the empty cube, indicating they are parented. You can now move or rotate them as desired. This is our final render animation. If you found this tutorial helpful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel and join our community. Until next time, goodbye.